So for about 30 days, I laid in bed and cried my eyes out and hid from the world and thought, oh my God, I've made my dreams come true. All these fears that I've had, now here I am. I actually have this. What am I going to do? And my daughter, and she was 7 years old at the time, and she said, Mom, are you going to die? And the last thing I'm going to even entertain with my daughter was death.
Today we're talking with psychic medium Michelle Gray. Hello, Michelle. Welcome in.
Hello, Kimberly. It's so great to be here.
Oh,
I'm so
I
excited.
we were just saying before we got on, I'm so excited to speak with Michelle. I have seen her work. I don't know her story. So I'm going to be learning it along with you guys. I'm so thrilled to hear about you. So Michelle, what was your life like before you started hearing voices?
Well,
Or maybe
so
you always did.
I did, but not to the degree I do now. So it was more like for me as a child and adolescent, it was more like that inner voice that I didn't really pay attention to. I heard it. I knew there was something else guiding me, but I was very fearful. I was afraid of death. I was afraid of getting sick. I was the type of kid and person that if I would get some kind of a, I don't know, strange rash or something in my, I'd be like, oh my God, there's something, I have a disease. It's incurable. That's really the way I was. I was
So
very
you went
fearful.
all the way down the road in the fear.
I did, and would obsess over it. Now, I didn't realize, I had a lot of very sensitive kid. I didn't really understand my sensitivity. I knew things, and I think a lot of my upbringing, my father, he's a car dealer, mechanic, very much in that automotive world. I have all brothers, so I was raised playing hockey and I'm Canadian, so we did hockey and all of those types of things. And I worked in the car dealership as well. I was raised there. I sold used cars and learned how to change batteries and oil changes and all that sort of thing. So my world was very, very different than it is today.
I want to
And
ask you a question really quick before you move on, because you said
yeah.
something was kind of interesting to me. You said, I knew things.
Mhm.
What did that feel like to you? And does that mean that you didn't think things, you knew for sure things?
Yes, yes. And,
Mhm.
I had a very close friend growing up, and she would always say, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that? Or she'd be like, you can't possibly know that. You wouldn't know that. And then something, would validate it. And she'd be like, you did know that. You did know. So I always had this awareness that I did know something. I didn't know exactly where it was coming from. I didn't even always trust it, but it was there over time. Like I was went through a lot of bullying through school, and a lot of, it was very different than a lot of the other kids. And I think part of that helped me with my empathy develop my ability to read, because I was always reading the room. I was very drawn to
Oh,
what was going on. I was able to read between the lines with people. So I'd know when something was truthful or when I was being, not being given the information that was coming out of someone's mouth. I knew if it wasn't matching their body language or matching. So it was those type of things that I knew were present, and there were certain people I could share that with, like my parents. They were also very, we had experiences as a family with spirits and things like that. So they had a fairly open understanding of me, but it was never really taken seriously. So it wasn't something that I said, yes, I can do this. I want to do this. I'm going to help other people with it. Because to be quite honest, I always felt like, and it sounds so strange saying this out loud now, but I always felt like I needed a story. It's like, well, what do I have to offer people? Like, what do I, yes, I've been through things when I was a kid, but I never really understood. I always looked at self development and help, and I wanted to be there for other people, but I didn't know how. And
okay.
I was very artistic. I still am. But I didn't really do very well in school. I did great in art and English and writing and speaking and all of those things. But when it came to science and math and all of that, I was right in the bottom of the pile. So my confidence was very low. And I didn't understand why I was that way. I just thought, maybe I'm lazy. Maybe I don't, because I felt smart in a lot of ways, but I just didn't know how to apply it. I didn't know how to put it together. So if we fast forward in my life, there was a period of time in my late teens where I got very involved in energy. And I had a group of girls that I would spend time with, and we'd call it girls' night, but we were actually looking at crystals, and we called them like spells. We'd look at different things that we could put together and mantras and things like that. So we would develop this newsletter. So whatever we found in our environment over the week, any experiences that would happen, each one of us would take a turn and draw up this newsletter. And we'd share it, and we'd spend dinner and a Wednesday evening together every week, rotating at different houses with this, what I now know was like a circle. We just didn't really call it
Oh,
anything.
right.
Yeah, it's a get
Yeah.
together. But spiritual experiences would happen. Different things would take place, and it was very magical. Of course, we all started to kind of grow apart, get married, our relationships, things changed. And I had a box that was full of cards and runes and different things that I had used. And when I met my husband, I put it all away. I remember I took the whole box, I slipped it under my bed, and I just shut down that entire part of me. My
How
art,
old were you when
everything.
this happened?
So I would have been 21, 22.
Okay, so you were
So
kind of gearing it up and developing your sensitivity, and then you just went chook,
yes,
shoved it, and literally
because
shoved it under the bed.
I literally shoved it under the bed. And now I'll back up just for a moment. Before I met my husband, I did date a guy for, I think, about 5 years, who came from an Amish background. So his family was, they're very religious. I learned a lot from that experience, but almost feel like when that relationship ended, I kind of got back into it a little bit. And then when I met my husband, I put it all away. And what I've learned about that was I didn't know myself very well. It was very easy for me to give away everything of mine to become a match to this other person and to take on his interests. So that was, say, the first, trying to think how long it was before it resurfaced again. Now, I will say to you, I did have times where my intuition would kind of pop up and resurface. My husband was very well aware of certain parts of me that were not easily hidden, but I didn't practice. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't really connecting with my guides on a way that I do today. What really started that was I'm trying to think, in 2010, I had found myself in a very serious addiction to Oxycontin. That was surprising to me because I guess in my mind, I learned a lot about addiction. And in my mind, I had not understood addiction at all until I found myself in full blown addiction. And I started with a prescription because I was diagnosed with I had some gallbladder problems. I had spinocerebellar ataxia, which is hereditary in my family. And I was depressed. I was depressed. I didn't understand myself. And so looking back, I can see all the reasons why taking this pill made me feel better
Plus, you had
physically,
given
mentally,
yourself
emotionally.
away. And
Yes.
I think that everybody in their 20s does something like that. That's
Yes.
kind of the dark time where we learn how important we are,
Yes.
you
And I,
know?
and I, a born people pleaser. So
Yeah.
because I wanted to avoid conflict so much that I would please through a situation thinking I was doing the best thing by putting myself aside, but not doing the best thing for myself or anyone else. So in the face of that addiction and how that all came to a head, I was really at this point of surrender where I thought, okay, I had a Bible, and at the time that was my connection. Was I used the Bible and I would just open it to whatever page and I'd put my fingers on it and say, okay, this is what I need to read today. And I wrote a letter to God and said, if you get me out of this addiction, if you help me with this, then I will do whatever I need to do. I will help other people. I'll follow my path. I won't push it under the bed anymore. Sure enough, shortly after that, I was able to get help, get through a program, and heal and start a new path. Now, by this time, I already had 2 daughters and a stepdaughter living with us. Right shortly after I started to get well again, I found out I was pregnant. And we had a surprise little boy. Life just seemed like it was just coming together. Everything was coming back. And lo and behold, when my son was, I think he was about 12, 14 months, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I had a stage 3 advanced breast cancer. It was a 7x7 tumor in my left breast, and it had already spread. So when I found it, it was quite advanced. And they said to me, how I was told was in a mammogram, and they had to do a biopsy right away. And they said to me, okay, Michelle, we're going to start chemo probably in the next 2 weeks. This is too big to operate on. We don't know what the prognosis is, but we're just going to take it one step at a time. And I remember just laying there crying, thinking, how could this be happening? How could I be going through this right now? Now, one thing that hadn't really changed was, even though I was getting better, I wasn't really picking up on the other pieces that spirit was telling me. So this was like the big 2x4 on the head by spirit to say, remember us, remember the promise, remember what you came here for. So for about 30 days, I laid in bed and cried my eyes out and hid from the world and thought, oh my God, I've made my dreams come true. All these fears that I've had, now here I am. I actually have this. What am I going to do? And my daughter, my middle daughter, came to me, and she was 7 years old at the time. And she said, Mom, are you going to die? And the last thing I'm going to even entertain with my daughter was death. And I said, of course not. I said, we're going to work through this as a family. This is just like anything else. We're going to walk through it. We're going to be better than ever by walking through it. And she was quite happy with that answer. She walked away and continued on. And I thought to myself, that's really strange. Like, why can't I say that to myself?
Yeah.
Why can't I give myself that advice and take that? So I did. And I stopped researching on the internet. I stopped asking doctors, am I going to live? I stopped asking for prognosis. I decided I'm going to live. And there was a piece of me in the back of my mind that said, but if I don't, I'm going to do the best I can with every day I have. So that was my choice. Now, what I didn't understand at the time, and of course, I met Eric after my cancer treatment. So I had 6 months of chemo, and then I had what they call a DIEP flap reconstruction and surgery, removed the tumor, which was very successful. And then I did 28 rounds of radiation afterwards. So through that whole process, it was a change in my thought, a change in how I looked at the journey, because I no longer looked at it as sickness. I looked at it as a journey. So when I would go to have chemo infusions, I'd bring my art books. I was drawing like children's books and just doing all kinds of things from the experiences that I was having, from the feelings I was having. And so when that was done, that's when Eric showed up in my world.
Okay. Now, for the people that don't know, can you tell us who Eric is? I know Eric. I've
Yes.
read Eric's
Yes.
book. I've read Elisa's book.
Yes. Eric is one of my spirit guides. He is Elisa, his mom, channeling Eric with a K.com. He had committed suicide in 2006, and he, through many different people, has come forward and really shows evidence of the afterlife and of reality. And I didn't know him or his story before, but he actually popped up on the internet. Like literally, he popped up, and it wasn't channeling Eric, it was his name in somebody else's writing that was telling a story. And I was like, spirit guide Eric. I'm like, what is a spirit guide? Like, I didn't even know what a spirit guide was. So off the research that I started to do, and that's when Eric started to come to me, where I started to have experiences. I started to
Okay.
hear things.
So describe for us what that felt like. Was it a voice in your head? Was it a knowing? Was it pictures in your head? Kind of walk us through
Okay.
how that felt for you.
So now I should back it up just a little bit and tell you that towards the ending of my treatment, I started to meditate, and I started to do that to bring more peace, to kind of calm the anxiety. So I wasn't doing it to open my third eye. I wasn't really thinking in that way. I was doing it because it felt good. So I'd go in and into this space and just connect in this space, and I would listen to, binaural beats or something for the heart, for healing the heart. So that's really where my focus was. So I started to have experiences with seeing a lot of visuals. So I would get like a picture in front of me, and I was quite amazed by it because nobody had ever told me that these are the things that happen in meditation. And I've had experiences before, but not quite like this, not like what I was seeing. And the more I would do that, the more interested I was. So I kind of had this going on at the side when I found Eric. So, how that experience came with Eric was, first of all, it was a knowing. So, seeing his name, I knew there was something there. There was something I need to follow. So, I followed that knowing. But when he first came to me, it was very physical. So, he actually started to play with my phone. And if you know, our phones don't have a cursor on them like a computer does. I suddenly had a cursor on my phone and it was zipping all around, like moving on its own. I'm like, okay, that's really strange. Then, of course, I know who Eric is now. So I'm sorry, Jamie Butler was channeling him at the time. So I was listening to Jamie Butler, and she was basically telling me, explaining who I was, explaining different, like the ways of thinking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not broken. Maybe this is who I am. Maybe this is what I'm meant to do. And so I started to ask Eric to validate it. Okay, if I'm crazy, then I'm crazy. But if this is really happening, then make it known for me. So he started throwing like I'd be in the laundry room and I'd get a bottle cap hit me on the back when I'd bend over and like nobody's here. Just little things like that. But the very first time I heard him speak in my head, it was actually, I always laugh telling this story, but I was cleaning my toilet. So I was, doing the whole toilet bowl, and I'm listening to a podcast. And all of a sudden it pops in my head these pictures I'd seen on the Channeling Eric website. And there was pictures with Eric at his funeral with orbs all around. And I had this thought cross my mind. And I was like, I wonder why all those pictures were taken. And so they didn't, because I was thinking like Eric wouldn't be known the way he is now at that time. So why were all those pictures? And I hear clear as day, Bestafar. And it was very audible. It was inner, so it wasn't outside, but it was not my voice and it was loud. And I thought, Bestafar. So I have no idea what that is. So I went to Google and I Googled it, and it means grandfather in Norwegian. So he was telling me, for the sake of family, his grandfather that wasn't there, that there was photographs being taken to share. But I thought that was so validating for me to have that experience. So that really opened up a whole lot more, because when we have those experiences, they change you, and they really help open up our awareness. And that really started the journey of, okay, Eric, there's something going on here. And that's when he started to come in a little closer and join me in meditations. So I would start to feel him. Now, feeling is that's my main vein here. That's what I do. I feel spirit. I sense their presence. And that's how they do a lot of communication with me, is through the body. But I do see images in my third eye. I do see, I see energy, but it's mostly like lights and molecules and movements. When I see spirit with my eyes, it can be very quick, like a quick flash. I might see the flash of a face, and it's very see-through looking, but that doesn't happen as often as what it does in my third eye. So those are the things that started to happen with Eric. He started giving me visuals. I go into meditation, I'd see his face and start to see images and pictures and those types of things. And the speaking and conversation with him was more like, and is a lot of the times, a download of thought. So it's just with the knowing, and knowing that this is what I'm hearing. So it would be like direction. He would tell me to start pulling cards. He told me to start working on myself. He told me to start looking at myself. I remember in the first week I had heard that, I thought, well, what healing do I have to do? I don't really have any healing to do. Like, it's so funny to me now, right? Even thinking this years ago, like, here I am, like, I'm good, I'm fine. What healing do I have to do? But that really started that inner journey of really understanding myself better. And make a long story short, it was really continuous transitionary steps of helping me get through different stages of my own life to then help my own family and help them, because my husband was diagnosed with cancer after myself. My little boy was diagnosed with autism and with some other issues as well. Both my girls have needs. So having myself in a better place has really helped guide the rest of my family. And that really is my purpose. That is my number one. But everything else is like, to me, it's just unbelievable every day. It never gets old for me. But to just have that experience of being able to share what I've learned with spirit and to channel with spirit has been just unbelievable. And so you might want to know how I got from one state to the other, though, right? How I got
Yes.
from lying in my bed studying to actually being out there.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question first.
Mhm.
I think I know the answer, but the viewers might not. You said you get downloads.
Mhm.
I've had that experience. It is wild.
Mhm.
Can you explain to the viewers how that feels and
Mhm.
what it entails?
So there's different types of downloads. So when I'm having, I'll call it a personal download for myself. It's almost like you're in a slightly different space in your mind. So you might be doing something and it's like being redirected, having your focus redirect, and then you go through what seems like a thought pattern, but it's not coming from you. It's rolling in. And sometimes it takes a little while to unroll that. So when you're getting a download, you might get certain bits of it that you're conscious of, but then, yeah, for me anyway, I have to sit down with paper and start to funnel it out and organize it. But then there's other ones, like when I'm channeling with Elisa, with Eric, when he's bringing through information, it's more direct. So they're shorter bits, shorter pieces, and they always have a tone to his laughter or his jokes or things like that. So that's really how I get the communication. But sometimes those downloads, especially ones that come from galactic locations, can be very intense because they include like a feeling in the head, almost having like a vice on your head. Doesn't hurt, right? But it's like that buzzing feeling on your head, and in comes all of this information, visuals, feelings in the heart, all kinds of things. And they take you away from reality in some ways. So it's Eric's here too. He's piping things in, but it does take some practice with them, and also to stay very grounded, because sometimes this can all come through and it can really uproot you from life. So you have to keep working on this
Yeah.
balance all
Yeah.
the time so that you don't float away and be unable to function as a human being
Hmm.
at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Does that make
So
sense?
it does. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. So how did you go from crying in bed
Hmm.
to now you're a busy medium and you're so connected to
Hmm.
this whole world and you're very, very busy? What happened in between?
So I started literally in bed, and I was still hooked up to IV bags and everything. And I took that as my study time. That was my time to get to know me, to get to know these abilities that I have. How do they work? What do they feel like? So I would be directed to different podcasts, to different videos, sometimes directed to different people. And Denise was actually, who's also on Channeling Eric, is one that I was connected with way in the early days before we ever started channeling Eric. And so we had a little circle, and we would meet with a few others that are also mediums every Monday night. And we'd meet for an hour or so. We had a great time, but we'd channel spirit. We'd bring them through. We'd talk about, what do we feel? What are they saying? And so there was a lot of information that would come out in those sessions together, talking about what was coming ahead. And there was always this pull of, you're going to be working with people. You're going to be working with people. And at that point, I already knew that. Like I felt that. So I was getting a lot of validation from other locations. So what Eric had me do, and this is through my communication with him, is he said, write everything down, write it all down. So I'll show you because I always keep them here so I can show people because I really took that to heart. And I've got several of these little books. There's little dollar store books. And in them, I've highlighted all the special pages, but I wrote it all down. I wrote down every dream I had, every experience, every message, and not to, sit and go over them over and over. But Eric said, because it will all make sense as you go along,
Mhm.
you'll be able to go back and piece things together. And so I would have a lot of prophetic dreams of Eric, and Eric would be in different locations. Sometimes he'd be in an RV with me. It was always on a road, though. We were always driving on a road going somewhere. And he would tell me, you're going to be meeting my mom soon. You're going to work with my mom. And he says, you'll know when it's the right time when the last medium steps down and there's more of you. And so I didn't understand that at the time either. But shortly after I got that message, Jamie left to do her thing and Kim came. Then on came a couple other mediums. And then I got to tell you, it was like magic. Just this one day, I got contacted by a woman that was helping Elisa. And she asked me if I wanted to channel some messages.
She just happened to be helping
Just
Elisa.
happened to be, yeah.
It's
And
so
she,
funny to me. We think it's coincidence. It's
right.
not.
And it's
It's all
so not.
planned.
Yes.
It's so not. Yeah.
It's so not. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Okay. So I did some channeling with her and she recorded it. Well, unbeknownst to me, she took one of the channelings because there was a message for Elisa in there for Mother's Day. And she passed it on to Elisa. And then she contacted me 2 days later. Would you like to meet with Elisa and practice or do like a test run so she can, validate you? Because she'd like you to come and work with her. I'm like, really? I'm like, this is real. This is
Yeah.
really happening. And that
Yeah.
was, I think, the aha moment that this was all real because I went back and forth for a little while saying, am I making this up? Am I
Yeah.
delusional? I question myself. I've been through trauma. I've gone through all these changes. Maybe this is some part of my head that I'm trying to make things okay to get through it. It's very real. And it continued to validate me and show me how real this is, but also how much power I had within me by changing my thoughts, by choosing to believe different about myself and really creating the reality that I want. And so, really, the rest is history because once Elisa and I connected, and Denise, within the same time, happened for her as well, it would just has continued to
Mhm.
unfold into these beautiful experiences and beautiful people all around the world. Like I pinch myself every day. Like I really get to do this every day. And I feel so proud that I can take my experiences and not only help other people with the channeling, but really help other people understand that we can go through hard things, that we can face hard things, and it's okay to have pain, it's okay to have hurt, but we can also turn it into something really wonderful
Yeah.
as well.
Well, it's
And
hard to
that's what,
have Earth without the pain. We're here for the duality.
yes, it is our greatest teacher.
Yeah.
Pain truly is our greatest teacher. And,
Hmm.
you know, I think one of the biggest things that have changed for me in my perspective with the world is that everything does not happen to us, it happens for us.
Hmm.
And we have the choice to decide whether we want to accept that or not. Well, I was just going to say, I got to a point where I was like, why don't I want to choose that? Of course I do. I'm not going to choose the other. I'd gone too long choosing the other. I'm choosing different.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of look at life as like a Mario Brothers video game. It's like do 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 do
Yeah.
do do do, and
Yeah.
you just get up and
Yes.
do it again. Whatever the
Yes.
challenge is like, okay, can I figure this out? Can I
Yes.
figure out how to do it? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And it actually starts to become fun. It really
Hmm.
does.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
wake up now with a sense of adventure. Like
Yes.
even when something's not quite going right, I'm like, okay, what's this going to be? What am I going to learn
Mhm.
here? Or what surprises around the corner? Because the beautiful thing is walking with the belief of everything happening for us allows us to experience more synchronicity,
Mhm.
allows us to experience that broader view of really what reality is, and
Yeah.
to see how reality is not fixed. It's,
Mhm.
it's like you said, it's a game, and it's up to us how we want to play it.
And once we start acknowledging the synchronicities, it almost becomes comical.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
I can remember, and you'll get a kick out of this, Michelle. I did an interview, one of the first interviews for this channel, and I walked out into the kitchen and the clock said 11:11. I'm like,
Of course.
of course. And it
Yeah.
was so funny to me because it was like almost a joke. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, fine.
Yes. Yeah. I love that too. I love that. Like it never ceases to just amaze me and surprise me and yes, make me laugh. I
Yeah.
just love that.
Yeah. So you had the first meeting with Elisa, and for those of you who are not familiar with the Channeling Eric website and that's the whole program behind that, there's a YouTube channel, Channeling Eric. I think I found the Channeling Eric website first because I've been like an NDE and I've just been so fascinated with the whole topic for a couple
Yes.
almost 2 decades now. So I was always
Mm.
researching, and you can find Channeling Eric here on YouTube. Elisa Methouse is Eric's mother. And when Eric passed, she was committed to finding out where's my son and how do I communicate with him. And that kind of started a journey that has led her to a lot of wonderful things. You can see it on her YouTube channel. In addition, she has written a book, and Eric has written a book that was channeled through Jamie Butler, who's another medium here on YouTube. And the one thing I want to say for the viewers, if you have lost a family member, particularly if you've lost a child, those books are
Oh yes.
so healing. I can just say it's a wonderful, wonderful way to spend some reading time to really start to heal your heart. So you
Yes,
had the meeting
absolutely.
with Elisa, and then how did things move forward from there?
Uh, I remember she had asked me to come on the radio show and do a video with her just to kind of introduce myself to the channeling air community. And it really just spun off from that. It was just turned into regular meetings. I now do the radio show. I do all the setup and that with her and do the radio show every Tuesday. I work with the blog, and it's just turned into a really beautiful family because all of us mediums get along very well. We support each other, we bounce things off of each other in such a loving way. And Elisa and Eric's family, our family. That's just the way it is, that we're soul family and we all really feel it. So it's been just a host of beautiful opportunities and learning. And this has been now, I think this started in, I'm trying to think, when did I start channeling Eric? In 2017, I
Okay.
started.
Yeah.
So it's been a few years now.
Yeah, it's been a
And
few years. And you've mentioned Denise a couple of times. I love Denise. Denise is
I
a friend of
love
mine.
Denise. Yes.
And I got to know her because I have had some sessions with her.
Yes.
And we just sort of developed our friendship. And I did an interview with her several years back. I did another one with her recently. She's just such a lovely soul.
She is.
Hmm.
She is.
Yeah.
She is my mom in another lifetime.
No kidding.
Yes, yes. And I one trip that I made to Texas, it was so funny. We laugh about it still, but she was just taking right care of me, making my coffee in the morning and just run around, and we discovered that yes, she was my mother, and I really feel it, but she's been such a blessing in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Absolute blessing. Yeah.
So do you do sessions for other people as well as Elisa?
Yes.
So talk to us about how that works for you. And if you have any, just can't believe this happened kind of stories, I'd love for you to share one or two.
Yes, so I do Monday to Saturday. Actually, Monday to Friday, I do mediumship sessions. I do group sessions with families, as well as I do healing work. and I do artwork. I do spirit art
Okay.
as well.
So group sessions with family, I haven't heard about that. Tell us about that.
So that's when, now a group session is sometimes you'll have, say, a pair of friends or a couple that want to do a reading and they just want to share the time. But most of my group sessions are families that might be in different locations and they all want to get together at one specific time to bring through a family member or
Mhm.
to, maybe help another family member. But I offer them once a week and they're usually quite filled up. Gosh, when you say what experiences, I'm trying to think of one that there's so many experiences that have just wowed me. I'll have to say, uh, there's a couple sessions that I've had, and honestly, Kimberly, I got to tell you, I think every one does shock me, like everything that comes through, because I'm the conduit. I'm opening my mouth and saying it. But when that person on the other side gets the validation, when it's just sometimes hard to believe. It's just amazing. Especially you've got somebody on the other side of the world that you have no idea who they are and their loved ones right here saying certain words, things that might not mean anything to me, but repeating it to them has just changed their whole world. And that is absolutely stunning to me. Um, let's see. There's actually I'm trying to think of which one is the best one to tell you. I'll have to say there was one session that I had that really blew me away, and this was what I heard clairaudiently before. I have a client that comes to me who sings, and the very first time I connected with her, or maybe the second time I connected with her, and this is several years back, I was getting ready to come down and do the session. I was in the washroom washing my hands, and I heard a voice coming through the tap, through the water, and I could hear the tone, the vibrato, and it sounded like harmony coming through it. And I was just like, did I just hear that? And I shut the tap off and I turned it back on, didn't hear it. So I shut it back off and turned it back on and I heard it. And I thought that is really unusual. So I set it aside and just thought that was amazing. I don't know what that means. And when I got on, and now I didn't know she was a singer, but when I got on, she was just bringing out a new CD. And the type of music she does is like is ethereal singing, like healing, beautiful. And that's what I heard through the tap
Yeah.
was her
Yeah.
voice. That blew me away, absolutely blew me away. Other experiences that I've had, sometimes they're very, when I say that I'm in a session, there are times where I've had spirit come in and surprise me. There's one time I had a spirit blow on the side of my ear and like it just not expecting it. But I gotta tell you, one of the experiences, now this one's not so much in a medium session, but was an experience I had waking up one night. At that time I was really trying to understand how we are all connected. I was just in this place of, what does it mean to be all connected? How are we all connected? And I woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning to get up and use the washroom. And when I got up out of bed, I saw like a grid. It was green lines all over the entire house, and they were
Oh
connected to
gosh.
me. And I'd move my hands, and the lines would move from my hands. And I was just like amazed, and it didn't disappear. It kept going as I walked into the washroom and I'd look down the hall. It was everywhere. And the way that the lines looked was they were alive. They had like, it looked like little bugs moving all over the place. They were just zipping all over. And what Eric shared with me afterwards is that that was our grid. That was collective
Yeah.
consciousness. That
Hmm.
was the connection. And I will never forget that. I didn't see it again, but that was so intense and just amazing.
Yeah. And, here's what I want to ask you now. When you were just, let's say, we go back to when you had your cancer diagnosis and you were kind of, in bed trying to process it,
Hmm.
you knew you had a connectivity that was unique,
Hmm.
that was getting you information that
Hmm.
otherwise you don't have no reason of knowing.
Right.
How have your skills developed and blossomed? Because I'm sure it's different now than it
Yes.
was. And I
Yes.
think that's one thing that I'm not sure that most people understand is mediumship. It's like any other talent or any other skill. You start out at one level and you keep developing and developing and developing. So
Yes.
kind of share with us how it's shifted and changed for you. And I imagine it's much greater now, or the
Yes.
amount of information you get from a reading is much greater
Yes.
than it was maybe a few years ago.
Yes, absolutely. In the beginning, it wasn't as, I would say, as strong, the feeling. So the actual feeling of energy, I didn't feel energy in the very beginning of communicating the way I do now. If a soul is walking into a reading, a spirit, my body changes based on what kind of soul it is. So if a grandmother walks in, if a child walks in, my body feels different. So I have females come in on my right, males come in on my left, and this was all through the process of learning. So this was actually learning with clients. So as I would go with the knowing, as I would go with what I would hear, then I would ask for validation from the spirit in my body. So I was able to validate myself and they would do it. So the sensations in the beginning were very slight. And so when I'm teaching people, I make sure they understand the spirit realm and connecting is literally a whiff above the physical world. So to catch on to it, you really have to be present and keep your awareness in a place where you're asking and listening and feeling so that you can catch these little feelings. Because had I have not spent time really digging into how do I already communicate, how is this already working, I wouldn't know where to go to grow it. So
Mhm.
yes, the feeling is very strong. So the difference today is I do a healing and I can feel in my body what's going on in someone else's body. I can
Oh,
feel the discomfort. So if there's a soul letting me know how they passed, I'm going to get the sensation in the body. So you'll often see when I'm channeling with Elisa or on the radio show, I'll say things like they passed of the heart or there's something in the chest area. So I'm going right to what they're giving me. Spirit is showing me in my body where it's going on. So that's intensified
so
because there's,
you've had to really learn to not just focus on what's coming into your head, but you've got to feel all over
yes.
what's going on in my entire energy field.
Yes, yes. It's like I call it like a potpourri. So it's a whole mixture, and each spirit and soul is different. So, there might be a spirit that comes in that is very thought, and very little feeling. And it also depends on who you're connecting with as a client. Is that how open is that client? Because when you're bringing in a spirit, they are the ground. So, like a battery. And this is where my mechanical dealing with cars for so many years comes in because it's like a battery. You have to have a positive and a negative, and that bridge, that conduit. So, if there's a lot of closed off energy, if there's a lot of heavy grief, it might come in differently than if it were more open. And again, what Erica taught me, it doesn't matter how it comes in because it's the message that's the most important.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
sometimes people get caught on, well, I don't hear, well, I don't see. And so they're thinking those are the only ways. No, no, no. It is a whole support system. So you just got to find the way that you're already perceiving and catch that. And as you, like a muscle, like going to the gym, as you keep working with it, it expands and then the other ones start to evolve and come up because we really do have access to all of it. But just
yeah.
like you said, it's a talent too. So it takes practice to be able to work with all of it and really develop it into the conversation so that you're giving an experience that's coming from this spirit and you're giving it your all because it's running through your whole system. So it does take practice.
Yeah. And then to add on to it, and I think a lot of people don't think about this, and why would you? I mean, this is such a small, or a topic that most people don't even think about.
Right.
When you're not in physical, there are some people, the people, even though they don't have a body, that communicate better,
Yeah.
that have just for some reason do it better than others. So
Yes.
do you probably have to get used to how that spirit is talking to you or trying to communicate
Yes.
to you?
Yes. Yes, because there are some, and often, it's very interesting too, because there's always a place for everything. So, if you have a spirit that you feel the presence and you're not getting a lot of information, well, the very first thing I go to is, I've got your father here, and, I feel your father's presence. I can tell that your father was mechanical, but he was very quiet, wasn't he? He's not saying a word. And as soon as that person says, yes, he was very quiet, then the door opens to start to bring in a little more.
Oh,
So
so
it's
it's
like,
once you have a validation, it kind of starts the flow.
yes, yes.
Oh,
So
that's
that's what the
interesting.
the whole beginning of a session for me is. It is validation. So it's validating, who do I feel? They always go to how they passed. So they'll go to what was going on in their body, what was going on in their mind at the time of passing. Even if it's been 40 years, 50 years, they still go to that, because that's how I validate with them.
Yeah.
And so they do that. And once we do that, then they start to share other things. So it's building a story. And the thing is, and I would say to anybody that's communicating with spirit, is the back and forth. So it's, I get the information and now I ask another question. So while I'm speaking to somebody, I'm also asking questions to the spirit as well, to help me fill in the information. So it's very fascinating how it works. But yes, there's some that just, there's some souls that really don't have a lot to say. They might come in with a lot of love and validate some things, but they're really not saying a whole lot of anything else. And that just is the way they are,
Yeah.
the way that they want to be.
Oh, that's so good. All right, so I want to tell you something, and this is going to lead into a question. Sometimes I sit around my house. I live alone, but I have animals, and I'll notice my cat looking around, or he'll go look over here or there, and I'll think to myself, I wonder how many people are in my house right now, and I
Yes.
just can't see them.
Yes.
I don't see visually, I do connect from time to time with different things. So, am I right? First of
Yes.
all.
Oh, yes, yes, because animals, particularly cats. Now, dogs, I find they do as well, because I've many dogs that see spirit, but cats in particular,
Mhm.
from what I have learned through my experiences, cats have one foot in the spirit world. So they're existing already as multidimensional beings. So they're seeing so much more than what we see. So when you see your cat doing that, yes, your cat is tuning into everybody that's there with you and everything that's there with you. And what's really interesting is you can use your cat as validation. So when you're communicating and your cat is there, watch to where the looking is happening and ask to feel the validation, because you're a feeler. You can really
Okay.
feel in your body too.
I wanna tell you a story. I wasn't planning on sharing this, but this is a good one. It has to do with cats and spirits.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I was living in another house, and I got up in the middle of the night because I had to use the restroom.
Mhm.
So, I go in and I sit down, and by golly, Michelle, I know there is someone standing right over there. I knew it. I could feel them. I can still almost see them in my mind. And I just like, I'm sitting there thinking, what is that person doing in my bathroom?
Yeah.
At that same time, this same cat comes around the corner into the bathroom doing the low crawl, hackles up, looking over in that corner.
Yeah.
And I just went, uh-huh, you gotta leave.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So it happens. It's like
Yes.
cats are phenomenal that way. I'll never
Yeah.
forget that. He just comes
Yeah.
around the corner with that low crawl and he's got his, it's like,
Yes.
who's in that bathroom with mom?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
It,
right.
it's cats are magical. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you put the close sign up? I would imagine that you are inundated more than most of us, or maybe just you're connecting with it or understanding what it is. How do you keep people from keeping you up all night long or coming up to you in the grocery store or bugging you when you're trying to cook dinner? Or how do you keep the flow manageable?
Um, a lot of it is my awareness. So I made it very clear in the very beginning. Eric suggested to me that, as you can tell, he taught me a great deal in the very beginning, but and
Good
still
boy.
does. Yes. He told me to write a contract with spirit.
Okay.
And so he said, write down, this is what I want to do. This is how many hours I'd like to work a week. This is what I'd like to share. And what I put out there, because these are our boundaries with spirit that we have right to work with. And so what I say is if there is a spirit that needs my attention because there's something that is really important, then you can wake me up. If there is something that you need to say, go ahead and wake me up or interrupt me or say, which has happened. I have been woken up or I have been approached in a grocery store or in a waiting room or something like that. But it's always for like, there's always a nice flow that goes with it. You can tell it was just all that right divine moment. Other than that, I don't get bothered at all. I really
Okay.
don't. And I think that's just from again, that, when we put our boundaries out there, and I believe that that's adhered to, and our belief system is very strong in our experience in reality. So, I really don't, my sleep is very important. It helps me do what I need to do in the day. And I really do honor family time. Now, I do have family, like I feel spirits coming up to me all the time when I'm doing things, but I don't always engage. So I might feel them, but I don't always engage with them unless it's something that's very persistent. But I've not really had too much problem with that. For me, that's been really good.
Yeah, wonderful. It's this is so fascinating. I love hearing about all this. All right, so before we wrap up, I want to ask you because you get information that the rest of us don't get. You get the expanded information. Things are a little goofy on the planet right now. Earth is
Yes.
going through a lot of changes. Based on your experience, your conversations with Eric and other spirits, can you share with us your perception of what's going on the planet and how we
Mm-hmm.
can best walk through this in a way that we're not feeling crazy 24
Mm-hmm.
7?
There really is so much going on for everyone on different levels. So one of the first things is for each and every one of us as we're walking through this, no matter how crazy things look, bring it back to yourself. Focus on what is most important in your life in any given moment. Because if we start to put our awareness on everything that's going on the outside, we're going to be pulled in multiple directions. The best thing that anyone could do for themselves as we go through all of these changes is focusing on what are my priorities? Who am I? What do I need? What does my family need on our home base and keeping in our lane? Because when we do that, we also open up our own consciousness. We are allowing ourselves to have a more expanded consciousness so that we don't become so deeply attached to what's happening on the outside. Because I think one of the things that I've really learned is the outside world would pull me around like a roller coaster many times. I'd watch what was happening from fear, like we talked about in the beginning, a lot of fear and what if this happens and the end of the world and all of those things that were coming forward so many times. And riding through a time like this, we are going through a very big transition on the earth, one that has been led up to for quite some time. And this is a closing of a whole older cycle. It's like a new framework that we have here on earth. And the framework is already there, but we still have to walk through the steps to be able to access all this new framework of earth. So we're watching things flip upside down or we're watching things crumble, but it's happening to rebuild. It's happening so that we rebuild it in a way that's more aligned with the humanity that we really are and
Yeah,
what we are heading into. So to help that happen, focusing on what's within helps what's without on the
yeah,
outside. So when we really focus on what we need, we can then be there to walk through everything with more ease, with more peace. And also that opens up our clarity so that we can hear our own divine information to
yeah.
help guide us through.
That's
So,
wonderful. And also, what a great time for us to think about what kind of world do we want to live in?
yes,
What do we
yes,
want? What serves humanity? What helps in our evolution? What feels good? What works?
yes. And I'll say, a lot of times I hear people say, well, what could I possibly do? How would my thoughts and how would taking care of myself make a difference? Well, in seeing that grid and how everything is connected and bringing it right full circle to that, we are all connected. And so, as we work on ourselves, we are assisting everyone around us. And so, when we choose to view the world to what we would like it to be and how we see it, and we do that from our heart, that is all collectively joined together. And light, when it's connected, is much more powerful than any darkness there ever was.
Yeah. That's so exciting to me. I want to come back so I can see
Yes,
the
yes,
doers.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you will.
Wondered. This has been so fun for me, Michelle. You're just
Me
such a
too.
delight.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed learning your story and getting to know you. I hope you'll come back
I would
at
love
some juncture.
to.
Okay,
I
that
would
would be
love
lovely.
to. I would
Yeah.
love to. You're so much fun yourself.
Oh, this is just you talking to you has just been such a treat. Where can people find you? What do you have? If someone wants a session with you or wants to get together a family session, tell us what you do and how we can find you.
So you can find me on the Healing Heart, and that's H-ART for art.com. And you can book all the sessions there for whatever service you would like. You can also find me on channeling Eric with a K.com. And I
Now,
also,
are
oh,
you on channeling Eric on particular days? Like, can we go look for you on a particular day or a
um,
particular kind of session?
we all go through rotation. I do a lot of on every Tuesday night, I'm live on Blog Talk Radio on the Channeling Eric station. Lisa and I go live and we bring on live callers. If you want to ask Eric a question, we usually have different topics that Eric goes through. All of our mediums on Channeling Eric go through a rotation. So I meet with Lisa once a month. But when you go on, look at the videos, you can find all of us there and our information, and you can view all of our videos there. I also do have a YouTube channel. It's just a small little channel, but it's the Healing Heart spelled the same way, the Healing H-ART on YouTube. And I have another gal, Marin, who was once a client and is now a really good friend and an amazing medium. Her and I go on and we talk about everything spiritual. We talk about teaching mediumship and helping other people empower themselves to
Yeah.
have their own connection.
Yeah. And that is I'm so glad you brought that up because anyone can do this.
Yes.
It is within our makeup to do this. It's
Yes.
our birthright
Yes.
to be able to
It
connect.
is.
And it's just a matter of honing the skill. And you've
Yes.
done a beautiful job of that. I will have all your contact information listed in the description box down below. So you guys will be able to just click a link and go over and find her on Channeling Eric or her own YouTube channel and her website. So this has been so lovely. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you.
today. All of you have a great week. We'll see you next time. My daughter crossed over in 2018, and
Okay.
I spent a year sitting in bed, crying, crocheting, and watching YouTube makeup videos. And then I
Yes.
thought, I've got to get out of bed. And I had no reason to get out of bed. So I thought, you know what? What if I started a YouTube channel to see if I can fix my skin?
Yes. Yes.
So this whole thing started from,
Wow.
anyways, I'm sure my channel had help from her. So,
So
you
I was
know,
just going to say, so this is your daughter I've been feeling throughout the whole session, because there's a
well,
female right here. And I'm like,
I was
Lisa,
telling
and
her
I,
before we hopped on, I said, honey, come
yes,
in. So,
yes.
oh gosh, I'm
Yeah,
so excited.
she's here. And yes, she does guide you, and you do talk to her all the time because she's like, oh, my mom knows. I talk to my mom. Um, and there's a dog that's with her. She's showing me a dog.
What
Whose
does it
dog
look
would
like?
that be? It's white, small
Oh,
white dog.
okay. Yeah, that's one of the that was she
Okay.
grew up with. Yeah.
Okay. She's just showing me the dog. I love dogs
Oh,
too, so maybe that's why
yeah.
she's showing it to me. She had brown eyes,
Uh-huh.
but like beautiful,
Yeah, she
beautiful,
was a really pretty girl.
like you, like you.
She was like mini me. God, I love that
Yeah.
girl. I do
Yes.
talk to her all the time. I don't know
Yes.
if I hear her as well as well.
She says, actually, you've got some very similar abilities to how mine work, because what she's showing is that there are times she's come to you in dream. She's come to you through thought, and she says that you've actually heard her voice in your head. So you have
Mhm.
had that experience with her, but she says that you also feel her in the body. So you know her presence, you know when she's there, and she gives you all kinds of signs all
Oh,
the
yeah.
time. Is she feathers? Does she give you feathers?
That's that's my other daughter who's still in physical.
Okay.
That's her nickname.
Oh,
Or
she's
that's
saying
it's a whole thing.
feathers.
I have a feather tattoo. Oh my gosh, Grace, I love you. That's so sweet, honey. Thank you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh,
She's angelic. Your
is
daughter's
she?
angelic. Yes, because the space that she's come in on my head is where angels come through.
Oh,
So, but I know that she's been physically incarnated, but she's got a very angelic quality to her. And she is also growing as a soul, because she's just showing me your growth and saying, as my mom grows, so do I. So the two of you are lifting together. Um, and did she tell you that she's going to be coming back to the earth with you when the earth has changed? Because she says, like, we'll be doing another round with it different. And she's putting it in a heart with it different.
you know, I asked her if she was going to come back to Earth, and she says, not until I'm going to wait for you.
Yeah, that's what she's
Oh my
saying.
gosh, I just
Yeah,
got goosebumps. Bless your
validating it.
heart,
Yeah.
sweetheart. You
Yeah.
just know that makes a mommy just,
Oh, yeah. As
it,
soon as you said that, because I kept feeling the little pulse as we're talking, right? So I'm like, somebody's here. I'm getting this
and
little
I was
pulse.
saying to her in my head while you were talking, come on, Grace, come on, Grace.
Yes, yes. And then as soon as you just told me, she comes right back like, yep, that's me. Here I am. Yeah. Oh, that is
Oh gosh,
awesome.
bless your heart.
You're
Oh,
so
you're so,
special. She just
oh,
says, my mommy is so special. She is so
oh.
beautiful. Yeah.
Well, it's a mutual love affair. You have just been a sweetheart.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Coming up next, this is a good one. Or you might really like this one too. Either one of them could be perfect for you. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe.